My grandmother left me out of the will. The executor read a second document, the first sign that something was wrong came before the will was even read. It was the way people looked at me. Not directly, not openly. They looked at me the way people look at someone who doesn't know bad news has already been decided. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 32 years old, and until the day my grandmother's will was read, I believed family loyalty meant something. I believed love counted. I believed promises mattered. I was wrong. My grandmother, Eleanor Whitmore, passed away peacefully at 86. She had been the center of our family for decades. Every Thanksgiving happened at her house. Every Christmas morning started with her cinnamon rolls. Every birthday included a handwritten card. She remembered everyone's favorite color, favorite meal, favorite memory. If our family was a wheel, Grandma Eleanor was the hub holding everything together. And for most of my life, I thought I was especially close to her, not because she favored me, because I showed up. While my cousins moved across the country, I stayed nearby. While my uncle visited twice a year, I visited twice a week. When Grandma stopped driving, I took her grocery shopping. When her arthritis got worse, I cleaned her kitchen. When she needed help with medical appointments, I rearranged my schedule. I never kept score. At least I didn't think I did. I loved her. That's what family does, or so I believed. The funeral was beautiful. More than 200 people attended. Former neighbors, church friends, old coworkers. People whose lives she had touched over 6 decades. Everyone had a story. Everyone had a memory. Everyone spoke about her kindness. I cried through most of the service. Not because I expected anything from her estate. Not because I cared about money. I simply missed her. The world felt different without her in it. Smaller, colder, less certain. 3 days later, our family gathered at the office of Attorney Michael Reeves. Grandma had named him executor years ago. The meeting room was elegant and quiet. Dark wood furniture. Cream-colored walls. A long, polished table. My father sat beside me. Across from us sat my Uncle Robert and his wife. My cousins Ashley and Tyler occupied the far end. Everyone appeared calm. Too calm, I noticed it immediately. No one looked sad anymore. They looked expectant, as if they were waiting for something. When Mr. Reeves entered carrying a folder, the room became silent. He adjusted his glasses and opened the file. "Thank you all for coming," he said. His voice was professional but warm. "As executor, my responsibility is to read and administer the final wishes of Eleanor Whitmore." He paused. "Before we begin, I want to say your grandmother was an extraordinary woman." Everyone nodded. Then he started reading. The first few items made sense. Donations to her church. Contributions to several charities. Specific pieces of jewelry left to relatives and friends. Then came the larger assets. The vacation cabin in Vermont, the investment accounts, the family home. The savings, the land. I listened quietly. At first, I assumed the estate would be divided fairly. Maybe equally, maybe according to need, something reasonable. Then I heard my cousin Ashley's name. She received the cabin. Tyler received an investment account worth nearly $300,000. Uncle Robert received the family home. His wife received several valuable antiques. The reading continued. Everyone seemed to inherit something substantial. Everyone except me. I waited. Surely there was more. Surely my name would appear. It didn't. The reading ended. Silence filled the room. My stomach dropped. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Mr. Reeves closed the document. "That concludes the will." Nobody looked surprised. Not my uncle, not my cousins. Not even my father. The only shocked person in the room was me. Ashley avoided eye contact. Tyler stared at the table. Robert looked almost relieved. And suddenly I understood. They already knew. Every one of them. They knew I had been excluded. I felt heat rise into my face. My hands trembled beneath the table. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Finally, I cleared my throat. "Is that it?" The attorney looked at me. "Excuse me, my name wasn't mentioned." An uncomfortable silence followed. Robert shifted in his chair. Ashley looked down. Tyler suddenly found the carpet fascinating. Mr. Reeves nodded slowly. Your name was not included among the beneficiaries listed in the primary will. Primary will. The phrase caught my attention. Primary, not final, not only. Primary. Before I could ask, Robert leaned forward. Emily, don't make this difficult. I turned toward him. His expression irritated me instantly, not sympathetic. Not apologetic, annoyed, as if my existence had become inconvenient. Don't make what difficult? I asked. He sighed dramatically. Your grandmother made her decisions. I understand that. Then accept them. The room grew colder. My father remained silent. That hurt more than anything. I looked at him. Dad, he rubbed his forehead. Maybe we should discuss this later. Later, of course. Nobody wanted the conversation. Nobody wanted questions. Nobody wanted explanations. They wanted me to quietly accept being erased. I stood. I spent more time with Grandma in the last 10 years than everyone else in this room combined. Ashley winced. Robert frowned. I continued. I drove her to appointments. I know. I helped care for her. Emily, I spent holidays with her when nobody else showed up. My voice cracked, not from anger, from heartbreak. Because the truth was painful. I wasn't upset about money. I was upset because exclusion felt like rejection, like a final message from someone I loved. You didn't matter, Mr. Reeves remained silent throughout the exchange. Then something unexpected happened. He looked down at the folder, very carefully, almost thoughtfully. Then he spoke. There is one additional matter. The room froze. Robert's head snapped toward him. Ashley blinked. Tyler looked confused. Even my father appeared surprised. Mr. Reeves opened the folder again. Slowly, deliberately, and suddenly everyone seemed nervous, especially Robert. What additional matter? Robert asked. The attorney folded his hands. Mrs. Whitmore left instructions regarding a sealed document. The color drained from Robert's face. I noticed immediately. So did everyone else. What sealed document? Ashley asked. Mr. Reeves met her gaze. A document that was not to be opened unless certain conditions were met. The room became completely silent. I could hear the air conditioner humming. Could hear someone's watch ticking. Could hear my own heartbeat. Robert swallowed, hard. What conditions? The attorney's expression never changed. The conditions have been met. Nobody spoke. Then Mr. Reeves reached into the folder and removed a second envelope. A thick cream-colored envelope sealed with red wax. My grandmother's handwriting covered the front. I recognized it instantly. Elegant, precise, unmistakably hers. The attorney held it carefully. This document was signed 6 months before Mrs. Whitmore's death. Robert's hands tightened around the armrests. Ashley looked worried. Tyler looked completely lost. I had no idea what was happening. But for the first time all afternoon, I wasn't the most uncomfortable person in the room. Robert was, by far, Mr. Reeves broke the seal, opened the envelope, removed several pages, then he began reading. To my family. The words echoed through the room. If you are hearing this document, then events have unfolded exactly as I expected. Every person at the table sat motionless. I felt chills crawl up my arms, because I knew my grandmother. And those words sounded exactly like her. Calm, direct, certain, the attorney continued. For years I have observed behaviors within this family that concern me. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Nobody interrupted. I have witnessed greed disguised as affection. Robert stared at the table. I have witnessed manipulation disguised as concern. Ashley looked pale. I have witnessed people calculating the value of my possessions before I was even gone. A sharp silence followed. Then came the sentence that changed everything. Most importantly, I have witnessed one person giving without expectation while others took without gratitude. My heart skipped. Mr. Reeves turned the page and smiled slightly. Then he read the next line. Emily, this part is for you. The room exploded into stunned silence. Robert looked like he had seen a ghost. Ashley actually gasped. My father sat upright. I couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't even breathe. The attorney continued. Emily, if this document is being read, it means my concerns proved correct. My eyes filled with tears. The words sounded like Grandma speaking directly to me. I know you will be hurt when the first will is read. Confused murmurs spread through the room. Mr. Reeves raised a hand for silence. Then continued. The first will exists for a reason. I stared at him. What reason? Why would Grandma intentionally leave me out? The answer arrived seconds later. The first will was a test. The room went completely still. A test. My grandmother had created a test, and suddenly Robert looked terrified, not nervous, not uncomfortable, terrified. Because whatever came next, he already knew enough to fear it. And for the first time that day, I realized something important. Maybe I hadn't been excluded. Maybe I had been protected. And maybe the real story was only beginning. Nobody spoke for several seconds after the words left Mr. Reeves' mouth. The first will was a test. The sentence seemed to hang in the air. A test. My grandmother had intentionally created two different documents, one public, one hidden. And judging by the expressions around the room, some people knew more about it than they were willing to admit. Mr. Reeves adjusted the papers in front of him. Then he continued reading. Over the last decade, I have watched my family carefully. His voice remained steady. I did not merely observe how people treated me. I observed how they treated one another. The attorney glanced around the table. No one interrupted. No one dared. I learned that kindness is easy when there is something to gain. My Uncle Robert shifted uncomfortably. But true character reveals itself when nobody is watching. I felt my chest tighten. Because those words sounded exactly like Grandma. She had always believed actions mattered more than promises, more than appearances, more than words. The attorney continued. Emily spent years helping me without expecting anything in return. My eyes immediately filled with tears. She drove me to appointments. She repaired things around the house. She sat with me when I was lonely. She visited when there was no audience. My father lowered his head. Ashley looked embarrassed. Tyler stared at the wall. Then came a sentence that made the room even more uncomfortable. Several others visited only when money became a topic of conversation. Robert's jaw tightened. His wife crossed her arms. Mr. Reeves continued. Before anyone becomes angry, understand this. I do not blame people for hoping to inherit something. The attorney turned another page. What disappointed me was seeing greed replace gratitude. Silence, complete silence. Then he read the next paragraph. 3 years ago, I began documenting family interactions. That statement stunned everyone. Documenting? What exactly did that mean? Apparently, everyone wondered the same thing. Because Ashley suddenly sat upright, Robert's face became alarmingly pale, and Tyler whispered, "What?" Mr. Reeves ignored the reaction. For 3 years, I kept detailed records. I recorded visits. I recorded conversations. I recorded requests for money. I recorded who appeared during difficult times and who disappeared afterward. I looked around the room. Nobody looked comfortable anymore, especially Robert. A memory suddenly surfaced. About 18 months earlier, I had arrived unexpectedly at Grandma's house one afternoon. I remembered hearing raised voices inside. Robert had been arguing with her. At the time, he claimed they were discussing property taxes. Grandma later changed the subject. I never thought much about it. Now I wondered if there had been more to the story. The attorney continued. One family member repeatedly pressured me regarding my estate. Robert immediately looked away. No names had been mentioned. Yet everyone knew. Everyone. My stomach twisted. Because suddenly dozens of little moments started making sense. The awkward conversations, the tension, the strange silences whenever inheritance came up, things I had ignored. Things Grandma had clearly noticed. Mr. Reeves cleared his throat. Then he read another section. 6 months ago, I met privately with my attorney. I instructed him to create 2 separate documents. The first document would reveal what people expected. The second document would reveal what they earned. Shocked silence swept through the room. My father actually leaned forward. "What does that mean?" he asked. Mr. Reeves glanced up. "It means Mrs. Whitmore anticipated today's reactions." Nobody responded. Because frankly, nobody knew how to respond. The attorney returned to the document. "If my family responded to the first will with grace, acceptance, and compassion, then the second document would remain sealed forever." A long pause followed. Then came the devastating next sentence. "Unfortunately, I suspect that will not happen." The room became painfully quiet because she had been right. Within minutes of hearing the first will, tensions had surfaced. Arguments had started. Feelings had been exposed. The test had worked. Perfectly. Mr. Reeves turned another page. "As a result, I authorized the executor to reveal my true wishes." My heartbeat accelerated. This was it. The real inheritance. The real plan. The real reason behind everything. Then the attorney stopped. He looked directly at Robert. "Would you like me to continue?" The question surprised everyone. Robert stared back. His face looked exhausted, defeated. Like someone watching a train approach with no way to stop it. "No," he muttered. Mr. Reeves nodded slowly. "Then I will continue." The next words changed everything. "The family home shall not transfer to Robert Whitmore." Robert's wife gasped. Ashley covered her mouth. Tyler whispered something under his breath. I simply sat frozen. The attorney kept reading. "The house shall transfer to Emily Carter." Nobody moved. Nobody blinked. Nobody breathed. For a moment I wondered if I had heard correctly. Surely not. Surely there had been a mistake. But then Mr. Reeves repeated it. "The house shall transfer to Emily Carter." I stared at him, speechless. The family home, Grandma's house, the place filled with decades of memories. The place everyone assumed Robert would inherit. The place worth nearly $1 million. Grandma had left it to me. Robert shot to his feet. "This is ridiculous." The attorney remained calm. "It is legal. It contradicts the first will. It supersedes the first will." Robert's face turned red. His wife stood beside him. "This can't be serious." Mr. Reeves folded his hands. "It is extremely serious." Then he reached into another folder and placed a document on the table. Signed, witnessed, notarized, perfectly legal. Robert sank back into his chair. For the first time in my life, I saw genuine panic in his eyes. The attorney continued reading. "The investment accounts shall be divided equally among my grandchildren." Ashley's eyes widened. Tyler looked stunned. Then came another surprise. "The Vermont cabin shall be sold." Ashley immediately frowned. "The proceeds shall establish college scholarships for local students." That announcement completely changed the mood. Nobody had expected that, not even me. Grandma wasn't just redistributing assets. She was making a statement, a final statement, about values, about priorities, about legacy. The attorney continued. "Family wealth should improve lives. It should not reward entitlement." Every sentence felt intentional, carefully chosen, painfully precise. Then came something even more shocking. Mr. Reeves removed a small flash drive from the envelope. The room stared at it, confused. "What is that?" Tyler asked. The attorney looked at him. "Your grandmother anticipated potential disputes." A knot formed in my stomach. Potential disputes. What had she prepared? The answer arrived immediately. "Mrs. Whitmore recorded a video message." The room froze. A video. A personal message, recorded before her death, addressed to us. Suddenly nobody looked comfortable anymore. Because written words are powerful. But video? Video leaves no room for interpretation, no room for denial, no room for excuses. Mr. Reeves stood, walked toward a television mounted on the wall. Inserted the flash drive. The screen flickered. Then a familiar face appeared. Grandma, sitting in her favorite chair, wearing her blue sweater, smiling gently. For one painful second, it felt like she was alive again. My eyes instantly filled with tears. Around the room, others looked emotional too, even Robert. Then Grandma began speaking. "Hello, everyone." Her voice sounded exactly the same, warm, confident, strong. If you're watching this, then I am no longer with you." The room remained silent. "First, let me say that I love all of you," she paused, "even those who occasionally drove me crazy." A few nervous smiles appeared, then her expression became serious. "But love does not require me to ignore reality." Robert closed his eyes, almost as if he already knew what was coming. "I spent years observing behavior within this family," Grandma continued. "And some of what I saw saddened me." The room grew quiet again. Several people became more interested in my assets than my happiness. No names, yet everyone understood, every single person. Then Grandma looked directly into the camera, almost as though she were speaking to me alone. "Emily," my breath caught, "you have no idea how proud I am of you." Tears spilled down my cheeks. Across the table, my father quietly wiped his eyes. "You never asked for anything. You never expected anything. You gave your time freely." Her smile softened. "And because you never kept score, you never realized how much your kindness mattered." I couldn't stop crying. Not because of the inheritance, not because of the house, but because she understood. She had seen everything, every visit, every grocery trip, every conversation, every moment. The things I thought nobody noticed. She noticed, all of it. Then Grandma's expression became firm. And she looked straight into the camera. "As for anyone considering legal action," Robert visibly tensed. The room noticed. Grandma continued. "I anticipated that possibility." A chill spread through the room. "Which is why my attorney possesses additional records." Additional records. The color completely disappeared from Robert's face. Whatever those records contained, he clearly knew, and he clearly didn't want them discussed. Grandma smiled slightly. A smile I knew very well. The smile she wore when she already knew the outcome. "If you're thinking about challenging my wishes, I encourage you to reconsider." Then she added one final sentence. The sentence that would change everything yet again. "Because the truth becomes very expensive when lawyers start asking questions." The video ended, and the room sat in stunned silence. No one moved, no one spoke, no one even looked at each other. Because suddenly it was obvious. Grandma hadn't simply prepared an inheritance plan. She had prepared for war, and she had already positioned every piece on the board. What none of us knew yet was just how much evidence she had collected, or how devastating that evidence would become, because the biggest secret in Grandma's files had not yet been revealed. And when it finally surfaced, one member of the family would lose far more than an inheritance. The television screen went black. Nobody moved. The silence felt heavy enough to crush the room. Grandma's final words echoed through my mind. "The truth becomes very expensive when lawyers start asking questions." I looked around the table. Ashley seemed shaken. Tyler appeared confused. My father stared at the floor. But Robert looked terrified. Not angry, not frustrated. Terrified. The difference mattered, because anger comes from feeling wronged. Fear comes from knowing something might be exposed. Mr. Reeves calmly removed the flash drive. Then he returned to his seat. For a full minute, nobody said anything. Finally, Robert stood. "We're done here." The attorney raised an eyebrow. "No," Robert frowned. "No, no, Mr. Whitmore." The attorney folded his hands. "The meeting is not over." Robert's jaw tightened. "I think it is. Legally speaking, it isn't." The room instantly became tense again. I could feel it, like a thunderstorm building pressure. Robert looked toward the door. Almost as if he wanted to leave. Almost as if staying had suddenly become dangerous. Mr. Reeves opened another folder. A thick folder, much thicker than the others. The sight of it immediately caught my attention, and apparently Robert's too, because the moment he saw it, his face changed. The confidence disappeared, completely. "What is that?" Ashley asked quietly. The attorney glanced down. "Documentation." Nobody liked that answer, especially Robert. "What kind of documentation?" Mr. Reeves looked directly at him. "The kind your mother wanted preserved." A knot formed in my stomach, because suddenly I remembered something. About 2 years earlier, Grandma had purchased a new filing cabinet. A heavy fireproof cabinet, She joked about becoming organized in her old age. At the time, none of us thought much about it. Now I wondered what had been inside. The attorney slowly opened the folder. Then he began reading from a letter attached to the front. "To my executor." The room went silent again. "If this document is being reviewed, then I believe certain family members may attempt to challenge my final wishes." Nobody interrupted. Nobody dared. "I am providing evidence supporting every decision I made." Evidence. The word landed like a hammer, because evidence means facts, and facts are difficult to argue with, the attorney continued. "For years, I maintained detailed records regarding financial requests made by family members." Ashley looked surprised. Tyler blinked. My father sat upright. Robert closed his eyes, as if he already knew where this was heading. Then Mr. Reeves pulled out several sheets. Bank records, signed notes, copies of checks. The table suddenly looked more like a courtroom than a family meeting. The attorney examined the first page. Over the past 11 years, Eleanor Whitmore provided Robert Whitmore with approximately $487,000. The room exploded. "What?" Ashley nearly shouted it. Tyler looked stunned. My father looked shocked. I simply stared. Nearly $500,000. Robert had received almost $500,000. Nobody knew that. Nobody. Robert immediately stood. "Those were loans," Mr. Reeves nodded. "Some were." The room became quiet again. The attorney lifted another document. "Many were not." Robert's wife crossed her arms. "That's private information." "Not anymore." The attorney's voice remained calm. "Mrs. Whitmore specifically authorized disclosure." The color drained from Robert's face. Because suddenly the information wasn't private. It was evidence. Evidence Grandma wanted revealed. The attorney continued. "According to Mrs. Whitmore's records, many of these funds were intended for business investments." Ashley looked confused. "What business?" Nobody answered. Mr. Reeves did. "The restaurant." Tyler's eyes widened. "The restaurant that failed," the attorney nodded. Robert looked like he wanted to disappear. Years ago, Robert had opened a restaurant. The family had been told investors funded most of it. Apparently that wasn't true. Apparently Grandma had. And apparently the amount was much larger than anyone realized. The attorney flipped through more pages. Then he paused. His expression became serious, very serious. I felt my stomach tighten, because something about his face told me the worst wasn't over, not even close. "Mrs. Whitmore documented concerns regarding financial misrepresentations." The room froze. Misrepresentations. That was lawyer language, dangerous lawyer language. Robert's wife immediately spoke. "We need our attorney." Mr. Reeves looked at her. "That is your right." Nobody missed the significance of that response, not one person, because until that moment, this had felt like family drama. Now it felt like something else, something legal, something much bigger. The attorney continued. 3 years ago, Mrs. Whitmore discovered several inconsistencies." Robert suddenly interrupted. "Enough!" The word echoed through the room. Mr. Reeves stopped reading. Everyone looked at Robert. His breathing was uneven. His hands trembled slightly. And for the first time in my life, I realized something. Robert wasn't afraid of losing the inheritance. He was afraid of what might come after. The attorney remained calm. "Would you like me to continue?" Robert didn't answer. That silence told everyone everything. Mr. Reeves continued. "Mrs. Whitmore discovered funds provided for business purposes had been redirected elsewhere." Ashley's mouth fell open. Tyler stared. My father looked horrified. The attorney slowly removed another document, a photocopy, then another, and another. Grandma had organized everything, every transaction, every date, every withdrawal, every transfer. The level of detail was astonishing. She had built an entire case file for years without anyone knowing. Then came the bombshell. The attorney looked directly at the document and read aloud. "Mrs. Whitmore concluded that approximately $200,000 could not be properly accounted for." Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. $200,000. Gone, missing, unexplained. The silence became unbearable. Then Robert slammed both hands onto the table. "That's enough!" The sound startled everyone. Ashley jumped. Tyler nearly dropped his phone. My father stared in disbelief. Robert looked furious. But beneath the anger was panic. Raw panic. The kind people feel when secrets begin collapsing. Mr. Reeves calmly closed the folder. For a moment I thought he was stopping. Instead, he opened another one, a smaller folder. Red. The sight of it made Robert visibly flinch, and that terrified me. Because nobody reacts like that unless they know what's inside. "What is in that folder?" I asked quietly. The attorney looked at me, then at everyone else, then back at the folder. "A family matter." Nobody liked that answer, especially me, because every terrible revelation today had started with vague descriptions. The attorney exhaled slowly, then he opened it. Inside was a sealed envelope. Another one. Grandma's handwriting covered the front. The sight instantly brought tears back to my eyes, even now, even after everything. Seeing her handwriting felt personal, like hearing her voice. Mr. Reeves carefully opened the envelope, removed a single page, read the first line, then stopped. His eyebrows rose, slightly. The reaction caught my attention immediately. Something unexpected was written there, something important. The attorney looked around the room, then he spoke. "Mrs. Whitmore instructed me to reveal this information only if serious conflict occurred after her death." Nobody interrupted. Nobody moved. The room had become completely still. The attorney looked down. Then read aloud. "There is one final secret my family deserves to know." Every heartbeat in my chest felt louder. The attorney continued. "For 31 years, I protected this information because I believed revealing it would hurt innocent people." My father leaned forward. Ashley looked nervous. Tyler appeared confused. Robert looked sick, actually sick. Then came the sentence that changed everything. "Robert has not been truthful about several things." The room froze. The attorney kept reading. "The most important concerns the identity of Tyler's biological father." Tyler's face instantly drained of color. "What?" Nobody spoke. Nobody could. The room felt frozen in time. Ashley covered her mouth. My father looked stunned. Robert closed his eyes. And in that exact moment, everyone realized the same thing. Grandma wasn't exposing financial secrets anymore. She was exposing family secrets. Secrets buried for decades. Secrets powerful enough to destroy relationships. Secrets that would permanently change how this family saw itself. The attorney lowered the page, looked directly at Tyler, and quietly said, "Your grandmother left detailed records regarding that matter as well." The room fell into absolute silence. Because nobody was prepared for what came next. And deep down, I knew the inheritance battle had never been the real story. The real story was the truth Grandma had protected for 31 years. And now that truth was finally coming out. The room was so quiet that I could hear the faint hum of the lights overhead. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody even seemed to breathe. Tyler stared at Mr. Reeves as though he hadn't understood the words. Or maybe he understood them perfectly and wished he hadn't. "What do you mean?" he finally asked. His voice sounded smaller than usual, younger. More vulnerable, the attorney looked genuinely sympathetic. "Tyler, I know this is difficult." "No," Tyler said. "What do you mean?" His eyes shifted toward his father, toward Robert. "Dad," Robert didn't answer. That silence spoke louder than any explanation could have. Tyler's face changed instantly. Confusion became fear. Fear became realization. And realization became anger. "Dad," still no answer. Ashley slowly turned toward Robert as well. "What is he talking about?" Robert rubbed both hands across his face. For a moment he looked 20 years older. The confident man who had walked into the meeting that afternoon seemed gone. In his place sat someone exhausted, someone cornered, someone running out of places to hide. Mr. Reeves carefully unfolded another page. Then he spoke. "Mrs. Whitmore instructed me to read this exactly as written." Nobody objected. Nobody could. The attorney looked down, then began. 31 years ago, Robert came to me with a problem. The words felt strangely intimate, as though Grandma were sitting in the room herself. As his mother, I loved him deeply. But as his mother, I also knew when he was lying. Robert lowered his head. Tyler stared at him, waiting, hoping. Praying, perhaps, that some explanation would appear. It didn't. The attorney continued. Robert informed the family that his wife was expecting a child. Tyler swallowed. Everyone else remained silent. A few months later, complications were blamed for confusion regarding dates and medical records. The attorney paused, then continued. At the time, I accepted the explanation. Ashley looked confused. My father looked increasingly uncomfortable. I had no idea where this was heading. Then the next sentence changed everything. Several years later, I learned the explanation was untrue. Tyler's face went pale. Robert closed his eyes. The attorney continued reading. Tyler, your mother is absolutely your mother. Tyler nodded slightly, as though hanging onto the only certainty available. But Robert is not your biological father. The room exploded. What? Tyler shot to his feet. Ashley stood too. My father looked stunned. Even Robert's wife began crying. The shock was immediate and overwhelming. Tyler looked back and forth between the attorney and Robert. No, nobody answered. No, his voice cracked. No, that's not possible. Robert finally spoke. Tyler, don't. The word came out like a knife, sharp, painful, desperate. Don't. The room fell silent again. Tyler's breathing became uneven. His hands trembled. The attorney waited respectfully, then continued. According to documents provided to me years later, Robert learned this truth shortly before Tyler's birth. Nobody moved. Nobody blinked. Rather than reveal the information, he chose to conceal it. Tyler looked like he'd been punched. I couldn't blame him. Everything he believed about himself had just shifted. The foundation beneath his life had cracked open, and we were all watching it happen. The attorney slowly removed another envelope. This one was smaller, older, yellowed with age. Grandma had clearly preserved it for decades. Mrs. Whitmore instructed me to give this directly to Tyler. He slid the envelope across the table. Tyler stared at it. Nobody touched it. Nobody spoke. For several seconds, he simply looked. Then, with trembling hands, he opened it. Inside were photographs, letters, documents, a birth certificate copy, medical records, and one handwritten note. Tyler unfolded the note first. His eyes moved across the page. Then suddenly tears filled them. He read silently for nearly a minute. Nobody interrupted. When he finally looked up, his expression had changed. The anger remained, but now there was sadness too, a deep sadness. The kind that comes from realizing your life contains chapters nobody told you about. What does it say? Ashley asked softly. Tyler swallowed, then looked at the paper. It says, his voice cracked. He cleared his throat. It says Grandma didn't want me finding out this way. The room became silent again. Tyler continued reading. It says she loved me exactly the same. His eyes filled with tears. It says none of this changes who I am. For the first time all afternoon, I saw genuine compassion on Mr. Reeves' face. Grandma had anticipated this moment. She knew it would hurt. She knew it could destroy people. And somehow she'd still tried to soften the blow, even decades later. Then Tyler looked directly at Robert, a look I'll never forget. Not hatred, not yet. Worse, disappointment. How long? Robert stared at the table. Tyler, how long? The question echoed through the room. Nobody looked away. Nobody wanted to, because everyone needed the answer. Robert finally spoke. Since before you were born. Tyler physically recoiled, as though struck. 31 years of silence, 31 years of secrets, 31 years of pretending. The weight of that truth settled over the room, heavy, unavoidable. Then Ashley spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Did Mom know? Nobody moved. Robert nodded, slowly. His wife's crying intensified. Ashley sat back down immediately, looking completely overwhelmed. The family she thought she understood had suddenly become unrecognizable. Then came the question nobody expected. My father asked it. Who is his biological father? The room froze. Tyler looked up. Robert looked miserable, and for a moment I thought nobody would answer. Then Mr. Reeves checked the final page and quietly said, Mrs. Whitmore identified him. Tyler's eyes widened. What? The attorney nodded. He was informed several years ago. Every head in the room turned. Who? Tyler asked. Mr. Reeves looked uncomfortable, for the first time all day. This information was left entirely to Tyler's discretion. The room waited. Tyler stared. The attorney slid another folded document toward him. This is for you alone. Tyler accepted it, slowly, carefully, as though it might explode. Then he opened it. Read and froze. His expression became impossible to read. Shock, disbelief, sadness, relief, confusion all at once. Nobody spoke. We simply watched. After several seconds, Tyler folded the paper again, then slipped it into his pocket. I'm not discussing it today. Nobody argued. Nobody questioned him. Because nobody had the right. Whatever answer he just received belonged to him, and him alone. The attorney nodded respectfully, then returned to Grandma's instructions. Unfortunately, the revelations weren't over. Not even close, because the final pages of Grandma's files contained something else. Something bigger than missing money, bigger than hidden parentage, bigger than inheritance. A secret involving the family home itself. A secret that explained why Grandma had been so determined that the house go to me, and why she had spent years making sure Robert could never control it. When Mr. Reeves opened the last folder on the table, I noticed something strange. Every document inside concerned the house. Property records, surveys, contracts, letters, dozens of them. Grandma had spent years collecting them, preparing them, protecting them. And judging by Robert's reaction, he already knew exactly what they contained. Because the moment he saw those papers, he whispered 4 words. 4 words that sent a chill through the room. Oh God, he said quietly. And for the first time that day, I realized the inheritance wasn't over. The biggest revelation was still waiting inside that final folder. Robert's quiet whisper lingered in the room. Oh God! The words weren't spoken with anger. They weren't spoken with frustration. They were spoken with surrender. The kind of surrender that comes when a person realizes there are no moves left, no explanations, no escape routes, no way to rewrite the past. Mr. Reeves slowly opened the final folder. Inside were dozens of documents, property records, old contracts, survey maps, legal correspondence, letters dating back nearly 40 years. The attorney carefully organized the papers before speaking. Then he looked around the room. Mrs. Whitmore spent years researching the history of the family property. Nobody interrupted. Nobody even shifted in their seat. We were all exhausted, emotionally drained, yet somehow still bracing for one final impact. The attorney continued. Approximately 6 years ago, she discovered information she believed was extremely important. Robert closed his eyes. The reaction didn't go unnoticed. Ashley stared at him. Tyler stared at him. Everyone stared at him, because by now it was obvious. Whatever secret remained, Robert already knew about it. Mr. Reeves lifted one of the documents. The original family property included significantly more land than currently appears on county records. The statement confused everyone, including me. What does that mean? I asked. The attorney nodded. Years ago, a section of the property disappeared from official ownership records. The room looked puzzled, except Robert. Robert looked miserable. The attorney continued. Mrs. Whitmore eventually learned that the land had not actually disappeared. My father leaned forward. Then, where did it go? Mr. Reeves placed a survey map on the table. The ownership was transferred. Nobody understood. Then the attorney added, without Mrs. Whitmore's knowledge. The room exploded. What? Ashley nearly shouted. Tyler stared in disbelief. I felt my stomach drop. Transferred? How? The attorney slowly turned another document toward us. A copy of an old filing, signed decades earlier. Then he delivered the final blow. The transfer was arranged by Robert. The silence afterward felt endless. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Nobody spoke. Robert simply stared at the table. Finally, Ashley broke the silence. "You stole Grandma's land." Robert immediately shook his head. "No." But the denial sounded weak. Even he seemed to know it. The attorney remained calm. "Legally, the matter was complicated." That wasn't exactly reassuring. Mr. Reeves continued. "However, Mrs. Whitmore believed she had been intentionally misled regarding the transaction." My father looked horrified. Tyler looked furious. Ashley looked heartbroken. And me, I felt mostly sad. Because every new revelation pulled another brick from the foundation of our family. The family grandma had spent her entire life trying to hold together. The attorney lifted another document. "This land is currently valued at approximately $3 million. The room froze. 3 million, not 300,000, 3 million. Suddenly, everyone understood why Grandma had investigated so thoroughly. Why she'd documented everything. Why she'd protected the records. Why she'd built safeguards into the estate. The house was never just a house. The property attached to it was enormously valuable, and Grandma had wanted to make certain it ended up in trustworthy hands. Mr. Reeves turned to me. "Mrs. Whitmore's final instructions were very specific." I swallowed. The attorney smiled slightly. "The property transfers entirely to Emily." Nobody reacted immediately. The amount was almost impossible to process. The family home, the land, everything. But strangely, the value wasn't what affected me most. It was the reason behind it. The attorney opened one final letter, the last letter, Grandma's final words. He cleared his throat and began reading. "Emily." Just hearing my name brought tears back. "If you are hearing this, then my plan worked." A few nervous laughs appeared around the table. Even now, Grandma somehow knew how to lighten a room. The attorney continued. "I never wanted wealth to become the measure of a person's value." The room became quiet again. "But I did want character to matter." My eyes filled. "Money can be inherited. Property can be inherited. But kindness must be chosen." Nobody moved. Nobody spoke because everyone understood, especially me. The attorney read on. "You spent years helping me without expecting reward. You offered your time. You offered your patience. You offered your love." The tears came freely now. Across the table, even Ashley was crying. "You believed nobody noticed." Grandma's words hit me harder than anything else, because she was right. I never thought anyone noticed. Not really. The grocery trips, the repairs, the hospital visits. The afternoons spent simply sitting with her. I never considered them extraordinary. I considered them family. The attorney smiled as he continued. "But I noticed." The room fell silent. "I noticed every sacrifice. I noticed every act of kindness. I noticed every time you showed up." The tears became impossible to stop. For years, I had loved my grandmother. Now I realized she had been paying attention the entire time, not keeping score, just noticing. Then came her final lesson, one last piece of wisdom. "One final gift," the attorney read slowly. "People often believe inheritance is about money. They are wrong." The room listened, completely still. "Inheritance is about values. It is about what we pass forward. It is about who we choose to become." The words felt bigger than the estate, bigger than the family conflict, bigger than the property. Grandma wasn't talking about wealth anymore. She was talking about life. Then came her final sentence. The final sentence any of us would ever hear from her. "If this family remembers nothing else, remember this. Love people more than possessions, and you will never truly be poor." The room sat in silence. No arguments followed. No challenges. No lawsuits, no dramatic confrontations, just silence. The kind that arrives when truth finally settles. Several minutes later, Tyler stood. Without a word, he walked around the table. Then he hugged me, tightly, unexpectedly. "I think Grandma got this right," he said quietly. I cried again. Ashley joined us moments later, then my father. Even Robert remained seated, silent, broken. Thoughtful. For the first time all afternoon, nobody seemed interested in the money, or the property, or the inheritance. They were thinking about consequences, choices, years, regrets. Eventually, Robert approached me, slowly, like a man carrying the weight of decades. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said. I looked at him. He seemed older, smaller somehow. "I made mistakes." That was probably the biggest understatement of his life. But it was a start. The first honest thing he'd said all day, maybe the first honest thing he'd said in years. I nodded. Neither forgiving nor condemning, simply listening, because Grandma had taught me something else. People are more complicated than their worst decisions. That doesn't erase consequences, but it explains them. Months later, the estate settled. The scholarships were established. The legal matters were resolved. The family home officially became mine. But the most important thing wasn't the property. It wasn't the money. It wasn't even the inheritance. It was understanding something Grandma had tried to teach us all along. Character reveals itself when nobody is watching. Not during funerals, not during will readings, not during family gatherings, but in ordinary moments. Small moments, quiet moments. Moments when kindness is offered without expectation. Years after her death, visitors still ask about the framed photograph hanging in the entryway of the house. It's my favorite picture of Grandma. She's standing in her garden, smiling, holding a watering can, looking completely content. Beside the photograph sits a small plaque, just one sentence. The sentence that became the true inheritance she left behind. Love people more than possessions. And in the end, that turned out to be worth far more than anything written in a will.